Bring in New York Congresswoman and member of the House Transportation and Infrastructure and Foreign Affairs Committees, Nicole Malliotakis. Congresswoman, good morning again.
Good morning.
You know, I had Karl Rove on the show yesterday, and he told me, he said, this is their attempt to kill the bill, the Democrats, because you realize you're not going to get a bipartisan package through, and then they can pass what they want, which is a $3.5 trillion package instead, and do it without Republican support. What say you?
Yeah, it could be very well his attempt to derail the bill, and it also could be his attempt to try to jam things through. I mean, look, any way you look at it, when you look at the $1.9 trillion package that was put forth for COVID relief, we said that we didn't need that money. We just needed a fraction of the money to do what needed to be done in an emergency situation. Now you see them spending all sorts of money in all sorts of different areas. They're giving it to big city mayors like mine to combat crime after they defunded the police. They're putting $1 billion towards illegal immigrant housing when we have homeless veterans. We have homeless people in our streets in our city. So we have to be able to take the time to review legislation, see what is exactly in it. That page, that bill, 600 pages, $1.9 trillion, they gave us just an hour to actually debate it, just a few hours to read it. So we cannot be voting on legislation without knowing what's in it, obviously, and I think it's just irresponsible for the senator to be moving forward in this direction.
Well, and there's not a lot of talk, obviously, about the federal deficit, and there's, obviously, I know you and your colleagues are, but unfortunately, as we go into more and more debt, that's an economic story that we follow here on the Business Network. But I do want to get to Cuba with you, obviously, that you've been very vocal about this. You recently called out your House colleague, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, on her comments that the U.S.'s embargo on Cuba is partially to blame for the unrest on the island. What do you make of this?
I mean, she just shows an ignorance of what exactly is going on the island. And I know firsthand because I have family there, and I could tell you there is immense suffering. People don't have access to food, to medicine, to the basics that we have here in the United States. But most importantly, they don't have access to freedom. It's not a democracy. They don't have the ability to elect their leaders and predict their own futures. The reality is that lifting the embargo would do absolutely nothing. And why? Because they do business with nearly every other country in the world. And for 60 years, they've remained a communist dictatorship. Whatever comes into the island, food, medicine, supplies, the regime takes it. They live like kings while everyone else lives in squalor. And even worse, they use this stuff to weaponize against their own people. If you don't join their communist revolution, you get nothing. And that is the way that they keep people in line. They keep people in check. But they're doing it against their wills. They want to be a free people. They want to have what we have in the United States of America. That is why they were walking in the streets with the American flag. And that is what I believe the Biden administration needs to work with democracies around the globe, those who love freedom around the globe, to put pressure on this regime to exit and bring democracy and freedom to this island. And also the United Nations needs to step up at this moment.
But we're not really seeing that yet. Why do you think that is?
I think it's very disturbing, particularly United Nations being so quiet. Look, Cuba, along with China, Russia, and Venezuela, the most egregious human rights violators, sit on the UN Human Rights Council. And I met with the UN ambassador yesterday, and I asked for her support on this because it is absolutely outrageous that they are just standing idle while the Cuban regime is beating their people. They are arresting their people. They are shooting at their people. And we have to have every democracy across the globe stand in support of free expression, free speech, free press on that island nation just 90 miles away from our shores. America should be leading the way, and I urge the Biden administration to really garner support from our allies to do just this. And I am disappointed that he's been so quiet, and I think if President Trump was there, it'd be a different story right now.
I'm disappointed too, Congresswoman. I was in Cuba 5 years ago, and to your point, every vehicle, the new vehicle, is either from China or it is from Russia. Every American car you see is from 1955, which was beautiful, but at the same time, they were all breaking down around me. I also live here in New York, as do you. I got to ask you about Eric Adams. He said yesterday that New York has, quote, become a place where lawlessness is the norm. And he also said that he's already begun informal transition talks with Mayor de Blasio to deal with crime. What do you make of what you're seeing out of Eric Adams so far?
Look, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that whoever wins the mayor's race in November will actually move forward with restoring law and order. But the reality is there was looting in Eric Adams' borough of Brooklyn. He's the borough president there. There is rampant prostitution occurring openly on the streets in his borough of Brooklyn. I haven't seen a lot of action taken from him as the leader of that borough to clean things up. So look, I'm going to keep an open mind here. I think anyone will be better than Bill de Blasio. That we can say for sure. But the reality is, unless they're going to restore the plainclothes unit of the NYPD, fully fund the NYPD, untie their hands, and push Governor Cuomo to repeal that bail law, we're not going to see real changes. So those are the first steps that need to be taken to restore law and order in New York City and across our state.
And he may not call it refund the police, but refund the police. Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, it's great to see you. I love talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. All right, well, here we go.